Dr. Chandler. Welcome to my video notes. This lecture summarizes some relevant historical touchpoints to establish the context of the origin of the discipline of sociology. It's a good idea to print up the Word documents of this video that I have provided before you view the video so that you can add your own notes during the video lecture. Content in this video will be necessary for you to do well on the course assignments and tests. Our study of sociology begins in the medieval period. This is also known as the Dark Ages of Europe because much of human knowledge was lost during this time. Seeking any knowledge other than faith in a Christian God was considered blasphemous and heretical before it became acceptable to do science. During this period, European culture was theocratic, meaning that people believed in the divine or God-given right of kings. This is a fatalistic worldview, that you were born to be a peasant or a king, and you accepted your fate. It would never occur to you that anyone could alter what God had preordained. Traditional religious values of this time include fatalism, that you could not change who you were born to be, familism, that your family was your identity, and many European surnames come from this time period. Authoritarianism means that the head of your household is the oldest firstborn male, and he determines what you do or do not do in your life, and of course the king would determine what he did. This is the time when virginity became socially valuable, as it was a method to ensure that at least the firstborn was of the husband's lineage. Ethnocentrism means that there was one way and only one way. That was the best for any practice, such as how and where and when to pray. And traditional practices such as these must be maintained. Agrarian cultures were cultures where you were born working in the land and you would never be more than a few miles away from your place of birth. Here is a timeline showing the loss of scientific knowledge during the medieval period. The reemergence of science in the Renaissance and the Age of Enlightenment allowed mathematics, physics, astronomy, biology, chemistry, and medicine to drive the intellectual social movement known as the Enlightenment by the late 18th century. Gradually, European cultures began to accept the study of the natural world rather than believing the study of anything but Scripture was sacrilegious or against God. Between the 1600s and the 1800s, the scientific revolution launched the Industrial Revolution. Often, the revolutionary aspects lay not in the act of invention itself, but in the application of technology for political and economic purposes. Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, Descartes, Newton, and many others promoted learning from doing science and applying scientific knowledge. Gutenberg's invention of a printing press made possible a dissemination of knowledge to a wider population that led gradually to a more egalitarian society. The Industrial Revolution in the mid-1700s to mid-1800s was an era of economic growth, especially for capitalistic economies. The Industrial Revolution is the most important event in the history of humanity since the domestication of animals and plants. European society transitioned from hand tools to machines. New chemical manufacturing and iron production processes improved efficiency of water power and influenced every aspect of daily life. The average income and population exhibited unprecedented and sustained growth. Besides the scientific revolution, wars across Europe caused the disintegration of the traditional worldview as peasants were forced into the military and marched across Europe, learning more about people and practices outside of their own villages. Wars spurred scientific discovery. As Napoleon famously said, "An army marches on its stomach," and he championed the development of canning and other methods of food preservation. The French Revolution in the late 1700's was a period of radical social and political upheaval in France that had a lasting impact throughout the world. The monarchy and the Catholic Church were overthrown by the peasants for the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity, the Enlightenment ideals. The growth of democracy, the spread of secularism, the development of modern ideologies all marked their birth during these revolutions. During the beginning of the modern period, secularism began. This does not mean to be against God, but apart from God, such as national holidays and government safety nets versus relying upon families and churches. Secularism is the principle of separation of government institutions from religious institutions, and refers to the view that human activities and decisions, especially political ones, should be unbiased by religious influence. Individuals such as Auguste Comte promoted the idea that we could study society the way medicine studies the body, so that we could systematically work to heal social problems such as poverty and racism, as medicine heals physical ills. In modernity, we had rational values instead of religious values. Think about your own identity. Fatalism versus activism. Can you change your life by the choices you make? Familism versus individualism. Are you destined to have the same occupation or lifestyle as your parents and siblings? Authoritarian versus egalitarian. Must you do whatever the head of your household and the leader of your community tells you to do? Or do you have choices about whether or not to marry and whom to marry? Ethnocentrism versus cultural relativism. Is the way to make chili only one way and the best way? Or are there many ways that one can or should make chili, or fold towels for that matter? Agrarian versus industrial and post-industrial values include that identity and welfare are not tied to the land that an individual was born on. You can move far away and take on an entirely different lifestyle. The scientific method used in the physical sciences led to the birth of sociology as social science in the mid-1800s in Europe. Sociology emerged during a period of social upheaval as the scientific revolution stimulated the industrial revolution and the changing values from traditional to rational, and incited political revolutions. This diagram indicates the timeline of the origin of the discipline of sociology in the context of changing cultural values. The scientific, industrial, and political revolutions changed every social institution. This is a list of many important social institutions. You should be able to list at least the first 5 of these institutions, and you might notice that your textbook, which is a survey of the discipline, devotes a specific chapter to many of these institutions. Human culture did not change over the first 80,000 years of its existence. However, in the past 600 years, these social institutions have developed and taken over many of the responsibilities that were once performed by the family.